What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Alex Pereira reacts to Jiri Prochazka fight. With his successful debut in the 205-pound division, Alex Pereira now finds himself in a position to compete for the vacant belt opposite former champion Jiri Prochazka at UFC 295. Although his win over Jan Blachowicz lacked the highlight reel finish many of his fans wanted to see, Pereira has made it clear that fans will not regret seeing he and Prochazka throw down at the famed Madison Square Garden. During a recent video for his YouTube channel, the former two-division Glory kickboxing champion spoke in Portuguese about the fight. Big thanks to everyone for the messages, the motivation, and I'm just so stoked. Okay, so it's going to be a fight, a real spectacle, because it's different styles. But it's a style everyone loves, and I'm super stoked to have booked this fight. I'm sure it's going to be a blast. I don't think anyone will regret watching this fight. Heading into the contest, the opening odds are incredibly close, with Prochazka opening at -120 to Pereira's -110 odds. When the fight takes place, it'll be interesting to see whether Pereira can capture his second UFC title, or whether Prochazka will be able to reclaim the belt. Shout out to our first comments on yesterday's video. Thanks for the support. Next up, let's take a look at Daniel Cormier sends warning to Leon Edwards. Ahead of Leon Edwards and Colby Covington's UFC 296 headliner in Las Vegas, many are confident that after the recent performance from the champ in his rematch with Kamaru Usman, he'll be able to handle the wrestling onslaught of Covington. According to Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier, however, fighting Colby Covington is entirely different than fighting any other wrestler. During a recent video for his YouTube channel, he issued a warning to the champ heading into the December 16th affair.
Leon Edwards' improvements have been so drastic and so vast that it's hard to imagine a time where he couldn't have wrestled or he would get taken down over and over again. His jump between that first Usman fight to the second fight was really, really impressive. But then my question becomes this, guys. It's one thing to fight a wrestler. It's another thing to fight a wrestler like Colby Covington.
So far, the MMA community has remained largely split in regards to who they think wins the fight. On one hand, many are confident in the champ's ability to defend the title again given his recent wins and Covington's inactivity, while on the other hand, Covington's fans are confident that the threat of his wrestling, combined with his pace, will be too much for the champ. With the fight on the horizon at the end of the year, only time will tell how things play out. Next up, let's take a look at Dana White receives backlash for Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson. This week, a bout between former interim lightweight champion Tony Ferguson and streaking Scouser Paddy Pimblett was announced for UFC 296. After the fight was announced, many were quick to criticize the UFC's matchmaking, given that Ferguson is in the midst of a 6-fight skid, while Pimblett has gone 4-0 since joining the UFC. Luca Fury was quick to point out that the fight is a historic one for the UFC, and not for the right reasons, writing, "Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson is the first fight in UFC history where one fighter is on a 6+ fight winning streak, while the other is on a 6+ fight losing streak. 6 wins for Pimblett, 6 losses for Ferguson." Another wrote, "They've timed this to perfection, waiting for Tony to hit optimal levels of washed. At the same rate time, Paddy desperately needs a resuscitation of his undeserved height. Truly incredible." UFC standout Chase Hooper also voiced his opinion on the matchmaking, writing, "What the actual f***? What madman made this fight happen?" Another fan even went so far as to call the fight the worst booking in the history of the UFC, while another one wrote, "Disappointed, but not surprised." While some believe that the fight could potentially be the one Ferguson needs to get back on track given Pimblett's narrow win over Jared Gordon, it sounds as though the baddie has plenty of fan support, with one fan even writing, "Paddy is gonna destroy him, would easily beat Prime Tony too." When the fight takes place, Ferguson will look to stave off his 7th straight loss, while Pimblett looks to make a triumphant return to the octagon. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at Israel Adesanya gets called out. Israel Adesanya is no stranger to his peers calling him out. From bitter rivals Dricus du Plessis to other top-ranked contenders, Adesanya knows call-outs are simply part of the fight game. With that being said, Adesanya likely could not have predicted the latest call-out to come his way. While speaking on a recent episode of the Jackson podcast opposite MMA legend Quentin Rampage Jackson and DJ Jackson, former welterweight champion Tyron Woodley was asked whether he was going back to the UFC. The chosen one then dropped a surprising answer, saying the only thing that would get him back in the UFC is the chance to get his hands on the former middleweight champion.
Only thing that would get me back to the UFC, the only person I would just want to beat the out of is Israel Adesanya. I don't like him.
Why you don't like him? Because he be wearing like those pearl necklaces and shit?
Nah, because he capped. Israel Adesanya, I get looking the same show, TMZ. They asked me who was next up. I said, I like this Israel kid. I said, he kind of, different, but he kind of got some pizzazz, right? He got his own character. He flashy. But he a good martial artist, too. I said, I think he the next one to watch out for. This when he first started, right? I already gave you respect. Then they asked me, who do I want to fight? Whoever at the top.
Of course, although Woodley is eager to compete against the best of the best, the odds of he and Israel Adesanya competing against one another are incredibly low, given that Woodley was released from the UFC amid a 4-fight skid at welterweight. Next up, let's take a look at UFC fight updates. This week has seen 2 new fights added to upcoming cards, while the upcoming UFC Vegas 80 card on October 7th also received a booking update. With Stephanie Egger forced off the card, Montana De La Rosa and JJ Aldrich will compete in a fight that will see De La Rosa look to snap a 2-fight skid, while Aldrich looks to build on an August TKO win. Next up on the calendar, we have a scheduled bout between Udos Medic and Johnny Parsons, which has been slated for the UFC Vegas 82 card on November 18th. The bout will see Medic look to build on a 2-fight win streak after suffering the first loss of his professional career back in 2021. While on the flip side, Parsons will look to build on a win in his UFC debut against Danny Roberts after a 2021 Dana White's Contender Series win. This week also saw another fight added to the highly anticipated December 2nd Fight Night card, with UFC veteran Clay Guida set to compete against Joaquim Silva in a bout that will see Guida look to bounce back from an April loss to Rafa Garcia, while Silva looks to bounce back from a June loss to Arman Tsarukyan, which dropped his UFC record to 5-4. Last but certainly not least, let's take a look at Francis Ngannou exposes Tyson Fury for cheating. According to former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou, he and his team will be sure to keep a close eye on the gloves of Tyson Fury heading into their fight in October. While speaking on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Ngannou referenced other fighters who have complained about Fury's gloves in the past.
Tyson gloves. He's very tricky with his glove. I think he's cheated. Yeah, I have heard a lot of complaint about his gloves, which is like his glove has no protection. Even when he fought Deontay Wilder, he complained about that.
Yeah, but did you ever look into that,
Direct Tisora complained about that, and that's what we are talking about the team. And then I'm like, oh, yes, the UK Commission, the gloves. I'm like.
As Ngannou explained, he and his team will make sure that the commission checks every glove to ensure a level playing field. It sounds as though much of the controversy regarding Fury's gloves stems from his choice to use horsehair padded gloves, specifically for the rematch and the trilogy bouts against Deontay Wilder. Of course, in turn, Wilder responded by using a similarly padded glove in the trilogy fight. Whether or not there will be any controversy regarding the gloves when Ngannou and Fury meet in the ring, only time will tell. Now, let's take a look at Khamzat Chimaev reveals shocking news. Ahead of Khamzat Chimaev's upcoming UFC 294 scrap against Paulo Costa, the undefeated 2-division contender has revealed that he will no longer be representing Sweden when he competes inside the octagon. Chimaev's manager reportedly relayed information to Home of Fight, who posted the news on Instagram. According to the account, Chimaev is now a citizen of the United Arab Emirates and will represent the UAE when he fights Costa in Abu Dhabi at UFC 294 next month. Considering Chimaev was a 3-time Swedish national wrestling champion, the news certainly has taken many by surprise. Given the high-profile decision to no longer represent Sweden, it's entirely likely that Boers will be asked about the decision while speaking to media members leading up to the pay-per-view event next month. The MMA community slammed Khamzat over this move. Here's what they had to say. Seems a little snakish, no? Anyways, Khamzat always gave off snake in the grass type of vibes. Imagine turning your back on a country that took you in when you fled yours. LOL. I don't understand why he doesn't represent Russia. I know he isn't Russian and he represents wherever his team is, but he has good connections with Kadyrov, who is in good relationship with Russia. It seems weird they let him get away with not representing them, but I think this could also mean they're not as oppressive as people think. At least maybe not for people they like, such as Khamzat. Hope Sweden bans him for life just for fun. When he steps into the octagon to compete against Costa, Chimaev will be looking to cement his place in the middleweight title picture. Whether or not he's able to defeat the former title challenger to keep the hype train rolling, only time will tell. Top comments. I think this might be Tony's comeback. Fingers crossed. Someone responded with, honestly bro, he's done. As I watch it keep trying to get that win, it's not happened. He's damn near 40 years old, and he took so much damage. Even before the Gaethje fight, he had sustained so much damage. Perfect example is the Barboza fight, or the Johnson fight. He got knocked out by Usman, a scrub. Colby's jaw has entered the chat. Someone responded with, yeah, the same jaw that got broken in the 3rd round and came back and won the 4th round, LMAO, with it being 2-2 going into the 5th. Then he slipped on a banana peel, started getting hit in the back of his head, still defending himself, and Mark Not So Goddard decided to cash in his bet that he placed on MyBookie. Colby won the rematch 3-4-5. Cope: I get the uneasy feeling that Tony Ferguson will most likely be the first UFC fighter to die on camera in his last fight, or he'll die as a result of the beatings he's taken in his last few fights. I hope I'm wrong, but based on his last few fight performances, it just looks like his lifespan could very well be shortened due to the accumulated physical punishment he has endured. Make sure to leave a comment and you might get featured in our next video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss any MMA news. Check out our video from yesterday if you missed it. See you tomorrow.